So, next up on yellow stage, I have the privilege to invite Mr. Teemu Arina and Mikko Ikola from Quantified Self Finland. What is this whole quantified self and biohacking?
So we started the community early this year when it seemed that this quantified self sensor technology was rising in the world, and it started from California just 5 years ago. And if you think of the gadgets available to measure yourself, quantify your performance in sports, measure your sleep quality, take more proactive care in your nutrition, there are many tools available to measure them. And quantified self is about bringing these together and seeing the patterns and improving your life. So it's been a huge rise now, and we've co-founded the community with Teemu, and it's been quite a success. So.
But I mean, you're both from the startup scene, and it's quite contrary to the hectic all-nighters, Red Bull and coding and everything like that, what we know from the startup scene that's so unhealthy, and pizza and beer, and now suddenly this completely different movement.
Yes, so what we are looking at here is hackers who have been interested in systems like computers, or personally I've been interested in organizations. How do you make different kind of systemic interventions in those? Now looking at the human body as a new playground for doing experiments and pushing the boundaries of what is known possible for human performance. So quantified self provides you the ways of measuring and understanding based on the data points if you are getting the things that you're looking for as an objective kind of outside external indicator, while biohacking is really providing you perhaps the hypothetical approaches in which you want to change something in your system. And it's this constant interaction between measuring, understanding, hypothesis, testing, doing self-experiments and so on. And now this is something that is really close to hacker ethic. This is really close to people who are interested in those kind of systems, and this is really bringing the Silicon Valley kind of atmosphere and mindset, as well as also Helsinki and the Finnish sort of technological scene into the new area of looking at the human body and the interactions with technology to a new perspective.
What kind of people join this community in Finland then? Is it only startups or hackers or somebody else, or is it open to everyone? And what kind of people do you mostly get there?
So compared to quantified self meetup groups all around the world, we combine the biohacking aspect into it. And as a result, it has attracted also people who like doctors and psychologists, and actually also in terms of the people, there is about over 1,000 people in our community, and many of those are also women. So it also interests people who are more into softer side and less about the hardware and software and data and analytics. So those things, and combining those is I think key thing that we have done, which makes it very interesting and a melting pot for new ideas.
Yeah, and if you look at the bigger trends where this is going, it's now the gadgets, the biohacker, the individual performance upgrades in a way. But if you look at the healthcare system and how it works, how it just fixes the symptoms instead of the root causes, that's probably the place where quantified self and biohacking type of thinking will bring new ideas and eventually even, I think, turn upside down the whole system more towards preventive healthcare. And you don't need to go to see doctor to get the measurements anymore in the future. You can get them with your own devices in the future, and just go to see the doctor to understand the patterns there, understand the data together in a more in the interactive way. So that's one big trend which is coming.
Do you feel doctors are ready for this transition, that patients bring this data, which is very difficult sometimes to interpret? When will the doctors be ready, or how can we move into that era?
So in a way, this is there is a clash between professionals like doctors and now these self-experimenters, people who do the diagnosis themselves and use this technology and try to understand in new ways what they are doing. So I think this is the same transition that happened in media. So when we got these first like citizen journalists and bloggers doing the same thing that professional journalists used to do, so they were stepping on the toes of those people. So what social media did to media forced also media to start to cooperate with this new emerging bottom-up kind of media. In a similar way, quantified self and biohacking will disrupt the healthcare system, enforcing basically the system also to interact with just every one of us, the patients, the untapped potential in the healthcare system to diagnose, but also understand and push the boundaries of science of what is known about the human body and what is possible.
Pushing the boundaries about science, but also a part of biohacking, to my understanding, is also food. Like we see here, great product placement from Ambro. Right behind us, there's a giant green balloon. What do you feel about food and the sort of natural way to revitalize yourself or to have like super well-being?
Well, I'll let Ambro answer that in a moment, but the way how I see it is that startup entrepreneurs want to kick ass. They really want to be high performers, and running on soft drinks and pizza is not really getting the best possible results in terms of what is possible in terms of performance on mental or physical performance. So it's really about starting to look at what kind of things you are using as the source of fuel every day when you are doing the things that you do. And in that sense, it's really about new ways of thinking about food and performance on that side as well. And Ambro is one approach to that. Maybe you want to tell about the performance side of that.
So yeah, fully agree with Teemu about the fact that people pay much more attention what they eat nowadays, because we used to work in industrial era in factories, but now we work only with our brains. So it's the only thing that needs to function well. And there are three things that needs to be in order. One is sleep, one other is sports, and the third very important part is food. And if either one of these fail, the whole equation will fail. And actually Finland is a pretty interesting country in this. If you see the Google Trends, superfoods is the most searched term in Finland. So many of the innovations in this field is actually coming from Finland, also the ingredients. And yeah, our company is one example. We are creating a total nutrition drink where you can get your daily recommendations in one powder and get it done in 2 minutes. And I think this food aspect to biohacking, quantified self, all of these are interrelated, and it should be looked holistically to understand the whole functioning of like brain-powered knowledge workers today.
Well, Soylent was a big topic about a half a year ago when this hacker started feeding himself with just Soylent. How do you differ with your product?
So if you look at Soylent, it's synthetically made and cheap, affordable, whereas Ambro is organic, whole foods, and premium product. So basically the usage philosophy is the same. So it's powder you mix with water and you're good to go in 2 minutes. But the recipe is totally opposite. So we're kind of like creating a new industry here together with Soylent to make people think that it's actually possible to have your meal in a liquid form.
I actually want to add a little bit on this because for me, food is also a pleasure, and it's a hobby and so on. I started hacking my employees by changing the way how we do lunch. So with the way how we do it, we use laboratory equipment to prepare our food. So we have these circulators and thermostats that are controlling.
Sounds very complicated.
Yeah, controlling the temperature of vacuum sealed bags in water baths, and we produce laboratory precise food basically for every lunch, and it's the best possible ingredients for local organic producers, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And the price point then actually is less than if you go to a local lunch place and you get a raw tomato and a couple of pieces of salad you can see through. So it's really pushing also the boundaries of what the ingredients are, and then preparing the ingredients in the best possible way. So I'm not necessarily ready to drink Soylent every day, so I would also look into just upgrading also traditional cooking methods.
What do you feel? Last week, the mayor of NYC said that instead of pills, doctors are allowed to prescribe vegetables now. So they're kind of like treating these diseases already like this. Is there something else that you would hope from the non-biohacking community in these kinds of ways that people would understand what would improve their health?
I think it should be encouraged more to take proactive responsibility of yourself. I mean, medical doctors could be the ones encouraging you. And what I mean with this is that while you get prescribed medication, why couldn't you get also mobile apps, for example, to measure your sleep quality, or some other factor that is available with the apps and gadgets nowadays. So like projecting your own insight to the data and start to think about it, start to measure it, will only itself already be able to pay more attention to it and getting more attention to the problem you want to solve. So more proactive responsibility on yourself, and make that interaction going also with the doctors.
One key aspect here is preventive healthcare. So actually the major cost to healthcare is actually when people get sick. So treating sick people is really expensive. So what I'm looking for actually is to kick ass and stay healthy, not get sick. So oftentimes the symptoms, when they arrive, it's already too late. So with these kind of methods and these kind of ways of objectively measuring certain aspects about your bodily functions and so on, you can have an early warning system that really tells you that your stress levels have been up constantly for quite a while, or your inflammation markers have gone up, or some other aspect that actually tells you to slow down or do something differently, have a better diet and so on. So it's really about performance as well in a society we are living in. So if you can save, let's say, 10 sick days a year, that's already a lot of money for the management, but also on an individual level, it's lost opportunities if you are sick in the bed. So I think kicking ass every day, whatever you are doing, is the spirit of also entrepreneurship, and you want to get there, start looking holistically what you are doing, not just the work that you do, not just hacking the way how you do the work, but also hacking the way how you fuel yourself to do the work every day.
There's been a lot of talk about super longevity, super well-being, human transplants, super intelligence and all this. Do you feel that this movement, quantified self or something, might be the first step towards that? Or how would you describe that in the whole package?
So this whole transhumanist idea of that we are not necessarily no longer in a situation where we go on in terms of evolution just by chance, but actually we can influence the evolution of the human species, and you can take certain things, certain aspects into your own hands and expand your lifespan, or increase your performance, or even change your DNA while you're still alive for your offspring and so on. So these are really interesting emerging topics. But in a way, if you think of us as cyborgs, as humans as use technology to expand what is part of us, we have done that for centuries. As long as we have been humans, we have been using tools and technologies as extension of man. I think this whole thing is not really new. It's something that we have done for a long time, and it's just a slight, this is not a revolution. It's a simple evolutionary step. It's really incremental and pretty obvious where we are taking the science right now.
One interesting example of this transhumanism movement is Global 2045, which is a movement led by Russian gentleman Dmitry Itskov, where the ultimate plan is to get human mind transferred out of your body to a completely new, separately built body, which I think is sounds totally insane currently, but something that we are going towards all the time. So that's the way we could maybe in some point reach immortality. Nobody knows. It's very interesting how they're approaching the problem, bringing people together from many fields to talk about it, and creating the future there.
But that's the same as the neocortex or the second brain from that Ray Kurzweil is often speaking about. Where does a human end and a robot start? If we start, because people, of course, already have limbs that are mechanical or something like that, and if we start putting transplants and everything, because robots don't really have any good legislation that on their side, where does society have to go with this? This is kind of scary.
Yeah, in a way we are already cyborg, so we use technology as extension of man. So I might use eyeglasses, for example. That's already augmenting my human capabilities, and this will just accelerate as we go on. Think of, having the whole internet automatically available as a sixth sense, augmenting what you do, what you see. This is what Google is, of course, doing with Google Glass, or other manufacturers out there who are looking at how can we augment human capabilities with the non-human and human appliances that are available. And it's pretty interesting. Where do we draw the line of how many percentage you actually are human at that point, and what can you be defined as? But technology in the end, the way how we use it is a human creation, and we are really extending our capabilities in many ways. And probably in the future, as you get vaccines when you are born, maybe you get implanted with some kind of microchips. Who knows? That basically keep you alive longer time, or give you some capabilities that were not there before. More important, more interesting question, I think, is do we have a choice? So if other people around you are like Terminators who are able to use this kind of X-ray vision and so on, and really do their work in a totally upgraded way, do you have a chance? Just like with mobile phones, when they were first introduced, some people decided, I'm not going to carry this mobile, I don't want to be reached all the time, but now every one of us has it, and it's sort of a lifestyle choice that you don't have it. And I think it's going to be the same as we go forward. And if we go further in the future, I think the role of technology will disappear. It will weave into everyday fabric and reality, so that we don't necessarily anymore think of it as technology or anything as special. Just like a pen in every room or every work table, we don't think of that as technology, although it is an extension of our hand and our thinking and our mind and the way how we do things.
When do you think the price point of these diagnostic tools and of these gadgets is going to come low enough that it's going to go really, really widespread? Because right now it's a certain community that are using these tools to display their functions and everything, like meditation, or there's a small tricoder on the way, hopefully somewhere. But when is it going to be so cheap that most people will start using them?
Right. So currently the amount of gadgets is just rising all the time, and the most hardcore biohackers are wearing them all, but I don't see that to be the case in the future, and I'm waiting like some big corporation to actually consolidate this market at some point, because when the technology becomes non-invasive, when it becomes, like as Teemu said, part of your everyday life that you won't even notice it, then we are in the breakthrough moment. And for the Google Glass is interesting example. When it can integrate all the sensors in the glasses itself to get the physical measurements of your body, it starts to get interesting, and have the vision part also in the glasses. So when it happens automatically, then it's something you need to have anyway, like we have eyeglasses or like we have a mobile phone. So then it's something just have to invest a few €100 and it will happen.
So right now there is a lot of these external gadgets or wristbands that you can use for tracking your activity and whatever, and you need to remember to turn on certain apps when you go to sleep and turn them off when you wake up and so on. But I think this technology will become more automatic, more embedded in our day-to-day life, and consumer technologies will really drive this. So of course the mobile phone the latest generation ones have these sensors, and they have already brought those to become wider audiences. So in the US there was a study that about 60% of the population is already tracking something in their lives, you know, weight or steps or something like this. So once it becomes embedded in your earphones, that you are listening to your iPod at the same time it's measuring, you know, your stress levels or something like this, or it's part of the mobile phone or your clothes or something like this, then it becomes mainstream. So until it's a separate gadget you have to buy for specific purpose, it will be still of the luminaries who will be using those.
Is the data personal enough? Because there's a lot of companies, or some people are worried that, for example, 23andMe, their database is only Western people, or only there's not enough people from Africa and Asia or Oceania who are getting the data. So the data is very based on a few different types. Do you see this happening in the quantified self as well, especially with smaller user groups, or is it enough targeted to the user itself, or how does that work?
I think it's a great power to be able to link the data from individual level to the collective level, and what we can learn from the data. 23andMe is a good example. Patient like me might be another one if you're looking at symptoms. So other people who have symptoms like you, what have they done? So linking that data is really important, but it also raises questions about privacy, and with this latest news about NSA, and you know, you can tell quite a lot about someone by just looking at some of the biometric data you can gather. Just the accelerometer data can be used on its own to predict certain things about what that person is going to do or where the person is going to be. And that raises a lot of questions about, you know, about sharing that information, and it's really a wild west out there as we speak. And many of these are private companies, and they are, of course, some of them are ready to sell some of this data to advertising companies, and Google is one of the biggest quantified self companies already, looking at your search data and what you are doing and then targeting advertising to you, even though we don't think of it as a sort of a quantified self kind of service provider. Yet again, Google might be the biggest one out there, and it will really be an interesting conversation as we go forward.
So I totally agree with the risk and problems there is with the privacy. But if you look at the different data, there's also some more private and something that you might want to share. Like your genetic data. Genetic data is of course something that you want to keep private on a certain level at least. But for example, your sleep data, it's not that serious after all. So, for example, the Health Puzzle or You app, the startup that's present here, what I've heard that they actually share their sleep data with all their employees, and they can understand that are their colleagues actually sleeping enough. So, you know, if somebody points out that, hey, like you've been sleeping only for 5 hours for the last 3 days, then like, why don't you take a, you know, day off and have a good night's sleep, and kind of like,
I would love my employer to say that, if I had one.
kind of like there's ways to in a trusted environment to actually bring more trust to your environment and care more about your colleagues. So there's interesting positive aspects as well.
Yeah, I would like to add something here. So the Industrial Revolution was all about companies trying to track different kind of parameters about their business to be able to predict the future. So now these tools might give new tools for management also to control and observe what their employees are doing. But I think there is better opportunities here by just giving the people the tools to track the data of their own activities to improve their work. So some data that is not actually used, like Walmart used these kind of activity trackers to see if people are working or not, actually giving that technology to the people so that they can keep that information to themselves, share whatever they want, but really to empower them to better understand their work and working patterns, and through that way improve the performance of what the company is trying to do.
Okay, we're almost out of time, but I'm going to ask now because Slush is known for very, very great parties. What is the one advice that you would each give for a Slush audience for Friday? How to get back into that kicking position?
Okay, so one thing that parties are all about is alcohol consumption. And we all know that what that might be doing to your body. So you may want to fortify your body so that it's better able to metabolize ethanol into acetaldehyde and forward into a relative to vinegar and water by giving your liver enough a specific antioxidant called glutathione. And you can do that. Glutathione is a master antioxidant in the body that takes care of breaking down acetaldehyde, which is the metabolite of ethanol, and that's causing hangover effect. So if you want to avoid hangover, you want to drink this evening a lot, eat an egg before you start drinking and eat another egg after that, because eggs have a lot of cysteine in it. You could also take that in a supplement form, N-acetylcysteine, and that will also actually support your liver in basically keeping the glutathione levels up so that you can break down the metabolites. And in the end of the evening, take some activated charcoal to clean up the digestive system, and remember to drink a lot of water and take a vitamin B complex and vitamin C and get a good rest.
Maybe we can ask Teemu to tweet that afterwards so we can go shopping with a shopping list.
Yeah. Teemu is the best person to ask, biohacking tips for getting over hangover. So definitely go to talk to this guy after the after party. But I agree with that. My recommendation for every busy entrepreneur consultant who go to conferences is just to start measuring the sleep, because when you see the average of your daily sleep over 1 week, it really opens the eyes how little we get sleep nowadays because of the screens open, the iPhone just before the bed and everything. So that opens your eyes. It gets you to pay more attention, that you actually keep your brain functioning.
All right, please give the gentleman a big round of applause.
Thank you.